Dooby-doo dum 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 doo dum dooby-doo dum 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 doo dum dooby-doo. Okay, welcome to a Mormon Soup interview, the very first one, brought to you by Modern Mormon Men, and I'm your host, Scott Heffernan, and I was lucky enough to get a very wonderful first guest, one of my favorite Mormons, the always intelligent, always articulate, and always beautiful Joanna Brooks.
Oh, stop.
How's that? Am I kissing up enough?
Blushing.
I think most of our readers will know who you are, but just as a short bio, Joanna Brooks is a national voice on Mormonism, a scholar of religion and American culture, senior correspondent at religiondispatches.org. Joanna Brooks runs an advice column called Ask Mormon Girl, and author of the recent The Book of Mormon Girl, a memoir or stories?
The self-published edition was stories,
Okay.
and this edition is called a Memoir of an American Faith. That's the subtitle.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're coming off another interview,
Yes.
a big one,
Yes.
The Daily Show with Jon Stewart.
Ow! I know.
Congratulations. That's just
So
awesome.
crazy.
You did great.
Thank you.
So, I mean, it's here, Daily Show. It's up, and now you're here.
Yeah.
Now you're here on Mormon Soup.
You know what? I love Modern Mormon Men, so,
You're kind.
It was pretty exciting. I'm sort of like, oh yeah, now I come home and do the dishes. All right.
Back to reality.
But reality is really sweet. But yeah, Jon Stewart's also pretty sweet. So
All right. Well, I am sorry I couldn't fly you out for the interview, but
me too. It's nice up there.
yeah, it is. You're coming up sometime?
Yeah, I'll be up there in November. I'll be speaking at Seattle University with Matthew Bowman.
That's cool.
Right before the elections, we'll be talking about Mormonism and politics.
Very cool. I'll have to try to go to that.
Oh, you have to come.
Okay. So your book, let's talk about your book. So as we mentioned, you self-published, and then it got picked up by Simon & Schuster, which is also big, right?
Yes.
So how does that work? How does a book get picked up?
And I got really lucky. But so here's the sort of, you want sort of the longer story?
Sure.
But not too long as to be boring. So I had written a book about interfaith family life, and kind of found an agent. A friend had an agent, and I was just like, okay. And so there was a New York City editor, and they said, oh, it's so great, you're a great writer, but there's just one problem. It's about you're Mormon, and that's so weird. We can't possibly publish this book. So at that point, this little grouchy voice inside of me said, it's time to really write a Mormon book. Like, if you think that was a Mormon book, you have no idea. Like, you have no idea what we're really about.
So you made it even more Mormon after that.
You had to go to 11 on the Mormon land, on the Mormon scale, because there just aren't that many books. There was like Alna Baker, and there's some really beautiful but serious history. But like, if people can still say we're weird, we just haven't told our stories enough. So I spent 2 or 3 years writing this book and tried to get people interested in it last summer, tried to get an agent. It's really hard to break into publishing, and no one was biting, no one was interested. And so I woke up one day in November, like with a start, and it was like this just push inside me saying, you need to self-publish this. Just do it. So I did, and it's such a neat process, self-publishing, and I had such a great time doing it. I got quote blurbs from Jana Reese, who everyone should read her book, Flunking Sainthood. She's a treasure. And from Phil Barlow, who teaches Mormon history at Utah State, and from the mighty Carolyn Pearson, and they all gave the book lovely support. And, via the wonders of Facebook and all of us, kind of thinking Mormons being so networked, the book did great. It got, it went, people read it, and I felt so gratified. And then there was some news coverage of the book, and some news coverage, some funny stuff, just profile of me. And after that, 2 or 3 agents got in touch with me and had downloaded my self-published version off Kindle, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're a really good writer. So let's see if someone will take this." So I found an agent I liked, and they pitched it, and Simon & Schuster Free Press, which is a division of Simon & Schuster, took it. So I was thrilled. I was like, all my dreams came true.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. Yeah. That's great. So there's some new stuff. There's some added stuff in the new version.
There's about 2 additional chapters worth of material, and there's a Q&A, questions for book clubs. There's a Q&A with the author.
Yeah.
There's like some recipes.
Okay.
There's added value.
If I bought, because I bought and read the old one and I loved it.
Thank you.
So should I buy the new one?
Yeah, if you can afford it. If you paid your fast offerings and put a little your kids' college fund, then
so it's worth it. Even if I've read the old one, to read the new one.
Yeah, there's some interesting scenes my editor pushed me to include. There's a little more fleshed out about those pivotal years at BYU, you know, like how someone kind of lands at BYU and becomes a liberal, like what that feels like. And for me, that involves a scene walking down an icy sidewalk where someone calls me an antichrist from a passing car, you know, in Provo because I have a peace sign button on my backpack. And there's more about how I met my husband. I was I tried to be, you know, like memoirs, like the worst news at Thanksgiving is, hey guys, I'm publishing a memoir. You know, like family, no one wants that news. And I wanted to keep husband out of it, but my editor pushed me, and I added some in about how I met him and how we fell in love and what we talked about when we got married. And then there's really a big chunk, a whole chapter at the end about what it was like to come back to writing. Because I'd written when I was a kid, and then I'd stopped writing for a while, and how writing about Mormonism and starting Ask Mormon Girl and writing about Mormonism and politics, like what that all felt like. It's about the Mormon moment, and it's about the way that, you know, Mormon stories are important right now because we're so misunderstood by most of America. So the last chapter is extremely contemporary, and it talks about our interfaith family life and about sort of this moment we're in right now and how it's felt and what I think it means for all of us.
Right. So it's kind of giving some clarity to non-Mormons to kind of get a glimpse into what Mormon life is like. But also for Mormons to read, obviously, who are going to appreciate it.
Right.
But so you describe yourself as a feminist and an unorthodox Mormon.
Yes.
So what does that mean, an unorthodox Mormon?
Yeah, well, you know, I started using the term unorthodox Mormon a few years ago because, you know, my husband's Jewish. And one of the things we joked about when I was on The Daily Show was that there are different channels and flavors of Judaism. And, you know, you can be a Reform Jew, which is slightly less observant in some ways, or have a different relationship to doctrine, maybe take things less literally, but you still feel very connected to it. It is still your spiritual home and your faith practice. You can be a conservative, you can be an Orthodox. And, you know, I've noticed it sort of helps people sort themselves out. And we don't have anything. We haven't had anything like that in Mormonism, which is good. I like that we're all kind of stuck together in the same church, that we don't like segregate out, or you don't go to the, you know, the cool the cool liberal congregation on the other side of town, or the conservative. We're all stuck in the same neighborhood, and you have to go to church with the people who live in your hood. And I think that's totally inspired. But at the same time, I find it can put people at ease if you're like, if we sometimes just have a label for our differences that's not a barrier, but it's like, yeah, don't worry, you know, I'm just unorthodox. I'm just unusual. I'm a Democrat. I'm a liberal, you know.
So why would a more Orthodox or mainstream Mormon, why would they want to read your book, or why should they read your book?
You know, I'm getting great mail from straight ahead folks. First of all, this is just a Mormon coming of age story. You know, like the first 8 chapters have nothing to do with politics, controversy. It's like, here is how it feels to grow up Mormon, because one of my main audiences for this book was non-Mormon people. You know, was to tell them all the stories. Like, people don't get why we care about this faith so much. They don't understand the humor in it and the tenderness in it and all of our insider cultural, you know, beauties, traditions. And I really just wanted to put all those stories down. I'd never read a story like that when I was growing up that had all that good stuff in it, that reflected what was so compelling and attractive about Mormonism. So it's a coming of age story. It's about a little girl growing up in a faith she loves dearly. And then it's, you know, when you get to chapter 8, chapter 9, because you see the book always has to, there's a conflict. I'm a literature professor. There's got to be a conflict. Well, there was a conflict for me, and it was coming of age and sorting out who I was and how I fit and whether I fit in this tradition. That's a classic American story. You know, you grow up and things get complicated and then you sort it out. And Mormons do that too. We do.
Yeah.
And so with the mail I'm getting, and there's a period in the book where I went inactive for a while and I really wrestled with things. But, you know, it ends with coming back, coming home with this a very expansive vision of a Mormonism where we can all belong. So, you know, I'm getting great feedback from readers who are more conservative. You know, my folks in my ward are reading it. I usually like to leave the ward out of it because no one in the ward wants to hear you're writing the memoir. But
well, and they're selling it at Deseret Book.
They are selling it at Deseret Book, which is really exciting. Cool. I mean, you know, it's some of the best mail I've had has been from parents who are family members who are more sort of, you know, what is it? Just like more LDS, more straight ahead LDS, saying, I got your book so I could understand my daughter who's been going through a time with it. You know, there's just so much. When someone in a family struggles, there is so much we do not talk about or that we can't bear to say to each other because we're all so tender about this faith. You know, it's like painful to even bring up when differences occur. So that's some of the happiest. I've gotten mail from people all over the Orthodoxy spectrum saying that was a good read, that was fun, thank you, it was sweet. But my favorite has been from some of the more like straight ahead LDS parents who've been like, my kid was struggling and I read this to try and understand her. That meant a lot.
That's great. That's great.